Hey, hello everybody and welcome. I think this might be week 13 of Compassion Check-In with my wonderful friends and my wonderful group of friends. If everyone just wants to wave, if everyone just wants to wave. Yeah.
Hello, Darren.
Hi, good afternoon.
And actually I said to wave, but you know when it's recorded, it only just shows one person at a time. So actually we're not going to get you to say what you do, but just say your name, because then each of your names will show up. I'm going to go to the top first of all. Martin, if you just want to say hello and wave at the camera.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Dr. Martin Patrick.
And over to Leigh.
Hi, I'm Leigh Taylor. Nice to see you all again.
And Aleksandra.
Hi, I'm Aleksandra. Nice to see you.
And Rob Neal.
Hi, everyone. Peace.
And Darren Sylvester.
Hi, I'm Darren Sylvester. It's good to be here.
And Frank.
Hi everyone, Frank Munro, really happy to be here.
And Mia, the Queen of the Mangoes.
Mia Morris, OBE here.
And Danny.
Hi, I'm Danny Silvestri.
Good to see you all. Welcome to you all. Today's topic is intuition and self-empowerment, right? Intuition and self-empowerment. Very interesting topic. And yeah, I can see Aleksandra is thinking the excitement of today's topic. I think what I'm tempted to do for fun is welcome Iris. Iris, we were just saying, everyone was just saying a quick hello, Iris. So we'll just wave to you, actually, if you can hear us. And I thought it might be good. Let's see how many we've got. 2, 4, 6, and maybe we'll, okay. Intuition. Anyone want to starter for 5? Intuition. Leigh, I'm going to turn to you because the reason I'm going to turn to you is that sometimes, you know, you run retreats and things like that. And sometimes it would seem that something calls people to places like that. Sometimes people seem to be called on this kind of inner journey. So what is intuition to you?
I have an interesting relationship with intuition. I guess it's that old sort of thing of your gut feeling about something. So sometimes yeah. I think those are quite similar for me. And I don't have sharp skills on many fronts, but with intuition, usually my gut is quite right. Like with the connection with Aleksandra, for instance, or with you, for instance, you know, I kind of trust that. So sometimes I think intuition can even manifest in a physical way. Usually, if I'm on the right track about something, I get chills. So that's my intuition about things. And if something isn't going in the right way, I usually don't feel anything. So I just kind of trust that in a sense. Wow,
interesting. I like that. I'm just distracted here. Iris, I'm just loving the backdrop. I'm just loving. I was going to turn to somebody else, but because you seem to be out there in nature, Iris, what to you is Iris K. What's intuition to you?
Unmute.
Oh, you just need to unmute, Iris.
I love that. Unmute and then she needs to hear.
I found in the past actually that I had quite often dreams before things would happen, and they were quite exact to certain situations, and they were so exact that it was actually quite uncanny in terms of word for word a conversation or a constellation of places and people, etc. And I have learned that they were always a warning.
Did you say that this was from very early on? Because your first few words I couldn't hear. Did you say this was from when you were a child, did you say?
Yes. So when I was at school, it was the first thing I actually dreamt, an experiment in a physics lesson. Don't ask me. Wow. To the dot.
Wow.
And I think by that, maybe that was just to make me aware that I have this gift. And then when I was a young woman, I met somebody on a night out, and it was a very unusual constellation of place and person. And I had dreamt the exact thing, and it was nearly like step by step as things were unfolding. I thought, this is like in my dream. And in the end, like in the dream, he asked me in his car to take me home. And in the dream, that didn't go very well. So I didn't go in his car in real life.
Wow.
It was really uncanny. And so from time to time, you know, I had a few years ago a similar kind of thing, which was more like a metaphorical, but it was actually symbolic of the threat. So I have a lot of respect for intuition, and I think it's quite a challenge to not rationalize it away, because with your brain you have no facts to think that's actually a plausible reaction or conclusion now.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. I'm going to turn to you, Darren, because I know that you're going to have to slide off a little bit earlier, but I'm just curious, I'd love to know your relationship with intuition, because I guess on the one hand, being a lawyer and your background as a barrister, I guess on the one hand, you're working just with the facts, but I'd imagine that sometimes you've also got to trust your intuition, right? Or maybe you're advising the jury to not listen to their intuition and just listen to the facts. What's your feeling about intuition? Because I've already been struck by what both Leigh has said and what Iris was saying. What's your relationship to it?
Well, personally, and then I'll come on to professionally, but personally, I do believe you should listen to your gut or that inner voice. And certainly I have so far through my life when I wanted to, there was always a burning desire to set up on my own. You know, I got to a certain age, I thought, well, I'll give this a try. And I thought, well, if I didn't listen to it, the opportunity may not come again. So I did listen to it. You've been very helpful coaching me 3 or 4 years ago, and the rest is history. So if I didn't listen to that intuition, who knows, I may have been made redundant, who knows. So I think on a personal level, we have to listen to it, because I think there's signals that are guiding you in a direction to find your true purpose and your true innate abilities and gifts, skills and talents. So that's a personal level. Professional level, yes, you do get intuition when you're dealing with certain clients. You feel that clients, when I see clients in conference, you feel that they're not giving you the full story. You feel that they're trying to maybe hoodwink you, or trying to, not deliberately, but they're maybe just trying to conceal things, but you have to then flesh that out through your questions and through your, the way you ask the questions and their responses to try and build the case. So yes, intuition is pervasive, personally, professionally, in relationships, in family life. I think it's a guiding force, and I'll certainly, you know, I don't think it will leave me, and I will never leave it, if I can put it like that.
Dr. Martin, you weren't with us last week. I'd love to know your relationship to intuition, because I know that from your background, your kind of very rich background, novelist, teacher, dramatist, and I imagine that particularly when you're teaching people around film, and that there's intuition for creatives is a big part of it, right? I'd love to know your own relationship to intuition, anything you might want to share.
Okay. I consider intuition to be enormously valuable, because I believe that that is pure truth that manifests itself within your psyche, within your unconscious coming up, rising up. When I was doing my PhD, I remember saying to the supervisor, these facts are not telling the full story. I had other ideas. And he said to me that, you know, instincts and intuition play no part in writing a PhD. And the panel will only be interested in the facts. And I thought, save your energy, don't bother arguing with this man, because I'm in a time. And then I thought to myself, where is intuition most valuable to me? And that very definitely is when I, as a novelist, when I am writing in the construction of narrative fiction, your intuition plays an enormous part in storytelling, in character building. Now, storytelling and character building and the psychological connection, it gives you an understanding of reality and realism. And that difference between reality and realism is something that affects all of our lives. If you shut off your intuition and you shut off your instincts, I think you're only half awake. I think it is vitally important that we recognize the true enormity of the value of instincts and intuition. Animals use it, you know, to navigate through a landscape. We always sort of have that moment when you sense danger. If someone's going to tell me as a woman that you don't think at times some things just move from A to B, and this man cannot be trusted, or this situation is wrong. That's your instinct talking to you, and I think every woman that I've met values that instinctual moment of saying, get the hell away from here, move him away from me, remove myself from this environment. So I don't think it should be underestimated the value of how instinct shapes our life in our choices, in our friendships, knowing that something's wrong with someone, as well as someone that comes over and you just think, there's something you're not telling me. What the hell's going on with you? And you know there's something beneath what you see. And to me, instinct is like oxygen. You can't see it, but it's there.
Wonderful. Frank, I mean, it's just wonderful just hearing you all so far, and some very, very powerful stories of intuition, starting with what Leigh was sharing, you know, just almost that felt sense, and Iris, that powerful intuition, you know, really a very potent form of it, the visionary side of it, where you almost in dreams, as you said, almost to the letter, the whole sequence, the whole constellation. Love that word that you used, and welcome, Mavel. We're just already steeped into talking about into intuition. And then what Darren was sharing about that difference between personally and professionally, but to trust it, and it wouldn't be here without that. Frank, what's your thoughts here, and what struck you?
Hi guys, I actually think it's a lot more subtle than we give it credit for. I believe that I have got a very highly tuned sense of intuition. So for example, if I walk into a room, I can normally tell the people that I will get on with and the people that I don't get on with. Where it really strikes me is when I'm out and about, I've always got my headphones on. I can always tell when somebody's entered my space. You know, I can look around. If I look to my left, there'll be somebody approaching me. If I look to my right. But I've also noticed that when I've been with friends, and we've walked into a seat, or we're into a particular scenario, they haven't immediately picked up on all of the things that I've picked up on. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't think everybody is listening to all of those messages all of the time, ignoring it, or don't know how to listen to those messages, that don't know how to pick up those subliminal clues.
Wonderful. I'm going to bring everyone else in briefly before I'm going to send you into some groups, and I want to try and put you in groups of 2 just to see intuitively what happens. Is what my goal is going to be. Danny, intuition.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I take on board what everybody is saying so far. I think it's a very important skill for me personally. It's something though that personally for me, I've had to kind of build up some resilience to again. It's not something that I've had throughout the whole of my life, or it's something that I've sort of shut down a lot of the time, just through life experiences, I guess, that you end up blocking it all out and thinking with your head more than you are your heart. And I think that's perhaps where the intuition comes from, is more from the heart. If we start overthinking it, then we let our intuition go, and that's when it can get almost dangerous, to the extent that you can put yourself in other situations that perhaps weren't quite right because you weren't listening to your intuition, your heart. And just as I was listening, I was thinking, you know, the animals that Dr. Martin was talking about, we can learn so much from those things. Babies or children, for me, I learn a lot from, because they have a pure sense of intuition. When I look at my niece and I see her playing, when I see her doing whatever she's doing, she's learning to think with her head, but she's just learning and playing from her heart. And I think that's mega important for our intuition to shine through, is just to be calm and in a state of openness to receive the signs that our intuition is telling us.
And it makes me think about, when you particularly talk about the babies, it makes me think about that lovely phrase, and I love words, is it intuition or is it inner tuition? You know, is it intuition or is it inner tuition? Aleksandra, intuition, I get the feeling that intuition plays a very, very big part in your life, and you've got quite a strong sense of it.
Yes, and I remember that Frank mentioned once about self-awareness. So I think this is what it's really important, that we have this self-awareness. and respect for this intuition or instinct, or I don't know how we can name it, but yeah, for me it was always very clear. I never had doubt in my life, like maybe or should I. I always just knew what I have to do. I just done it because it came from the heart, and I took that freedom. And only, I think yesterday we talked, Leigh and me, about like burnout. When does burnout happen? Or when it happened to me? It's when I didn't listen to my intuition, and when I tried to explain to myself that I have to sacrifice myself for the benefit of others, or something like this, what Dr. Martin said also, like we try to justify other people's not so good deeds when you know they were not positive and the intention was not good, but you'd kind of go for it because, yeah, you rationalize. So yes, I've done it a couple of times in my life, and then I burn out. So I think this is really interesting that we talked, it's like soul. We said that in this book I read, it's soul starving. Burnout is when your soul starves to death or something, like you just die because you don't follow your intuition. It doesn't feed you. It doesn't feed your life. So yeah, intuition is extremely important for the self-empowerment, and also giving others trust in their intuition. And I think with children or animals, we don't have to teach them how to play or how to get food, but we have to a little bit teach them how to protect themselves. So I think I didn't have that in my upbringing. So even now when I teach yoga or something, I teach people to be free, but also I always tell them how to protect their joints and things like this. I think it's balance between being aware of positivity and also like negativity around.
Wonderful. I'm mindful we need to hear from Mavelle, from Rob and Mia, but I'm mindful that Darren's going to be heading off soon, so I'm going to play a fun game with you. You're about to go into rooms where there's only going to be 2 of you. So I'm really interested to find out what happens, but I want you to share with them what's your intuition been saying to you recently, or it might even be that your intuition is saying something to that person at that moment. So let's have some fun with our groups. Over to you, my friends. So exciting. Right, now they've all gone into rooms. So this is really interesting. So what's happened is that I've put them into 5 rooms, and it's going to be just so interesting to see, you know, what happens. I've never done this before, where I put people into rooms and where they're pairs. And this is going to be just so interesting to see for me what kind of happens in terms of their conversation. So we've got Mavelle and Rob, and 4 minutes, I'm just going to tell them. So sure you both have time to share. So they're only going to get 4 minutes. So let's see where they are. Right, so let's see where they are. So yeah, so I put them into these rooms. And I'm just curious about how they're teaming up. So we've got Mavelle and Rob, we've got Frank and Leigh, we have got Danny and Iris, okay, because we have 2 regular Irises. We've got Aleksandra, Sandra, plus Darren. We'll hear from them first because Darren's going to have to leave soon. And then we've got Dr. Martin plus Mia Morris. That's going to be just so interesting to hear what they've all got to say. What do I feel about this thing about intuition? Yeah, I think it's so important just to trust, and to trust one's heart, to trust one's instinct. For me, it's instinct, intuition, inspiration. For me, they all kind of intertwine, because for me, like as a singer, a performer, sometimes just kind of things kind of come through, and or, you know, sometimes a quote would just come through to me. So for me, it's like it's often an inner voice, or it's a kind of, and it's hard to tell if it's an inner or if it's an outer. It's almost as though it's all on the wind. So that's my kind of thing with it. I'm going to tell them they've got just 2 minutes. So it's just a really, really fascinating thing. It's a very powerful thing. And it struck me how when people say what happens when you don't trust it, what's your relationship with it? You know, do you listen to your intuition? Have you had problems with it? You know, it's interesting, like a couple of people point out often we can shut it off, or, you know, we've had some very powerful things of where people almost, you know, well, you know, it's so in a dream before something's kind of happened. It's very, very powerful, this. And we often hear about mother's intuition, etc. It seems to be a very, very powerful thing, but it does seem to be one of those things that we, I guess maybe particularly in the West, we kind of put it over here and everything's got to be logical, it's got to be this and that. But so fascinating hearing pretty much everyone who've spoke from so far, sharing very similar things about the importance of them listening to their intuition. So there we have it. I'm about to bring them back into the room and to see what they've got to say. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they've got to say. I'm going to bring them back in soon because I know that Darren's going to have to leave, so I'm going to bring them back here. Right, so let's see what they've got to say. They've got 60 seconds, then they'll be back. Let's see what they've got to say. I'm fascinated. What about you? When have you listened to your intuition, and what's resulted from it? And when have you not listened to your intuition? You know, when have you not listened to it? And what's happened? It's just absolutely intriguing. I cannot wait to hear from them. Aleksandra, welcome back. Darren, welcome back. Darren, we're going to hear from you first because we know you've got to slide off, but we're going to wait for everyone else to get back. But I hope you had a good conversation. I'm fascinated. Really, really fascinated. It's a really interesting, it's quite a topic, isn't it? I mean, it's interesting that how pretty much everyone we've heard from so far, this thing about intuition, they have a very strong feeling about it, a very strong relationship to it. And it was interesting, you know, Darren, when you were speaking, I love the fact you talked about it personally, and then you talked about it professionally. And even when professionally, when you've got that sense of when somebody's not telling you the whole story, it's just fascinating. Welcome back, everybody. Great to see you all back. I can't wait to know how you got on. I know that because Darren, you've got to head off first. Darren and Aleksandra, you were in the same room. Tell us what happened, and was there any magic?
Yeah, it was good. We had a good conversation, and Aleksandra can add to it when I go. But I think what I got from Aleksandra is that she's got all the ideas in her head, but she needs to work on the administration, and that's what her intuition is telling her, to maybe propel herself forward in a better way. The administration needs to be stronger. Wow. And I think what I told Aleksandra was that really it's about slowing down. It's not about being the fastest at everything or doing everything or the quickest. It's about sometimes taking that step back, reassessing things. And I'd like to do more gardening and more therapeutic stuff, reading. And I put a quote in the chat box about T.D. Jakes, about instinct. I don't know if those have read it. Mm-hmm. But that is one of the things when I do read, I really get a lot from it. I think it was called Destiny. There's a T.D. Jakes book called Destiny. And I'd highly recommend it to those who have not read it.
And the quote is, if we don't listen to our instincts, we soon find ourselves extinct. Wow, powerful.
Yeah.
Now, just before I'm going to bring in the next group, and I'll go to the people who haven't spoken so far. Aleksandra, just the tail end of that. So that is that right? Is the instinct telling you now, focus on the admin and those practical things?
Yes, because I have always like a heart and mind full of ideas. It's just that I need to articulate and really get more clarity and just then bring it to fruition.
Wonderful. Let's go to two people who we've not heard from so far today. I can't believe we've not heard from these two wise souls yet. And they were in the same room together. Rob and Mavel, don't look surprised as though we're talking about you. So you were both in the same room. Tell us share what came through. Who wants to take the lead first?
What I'll say is, unfortunately, we probably didn't have the discussion we were supposed to have because we haven't been able to speak to each other for ages, and we've been trying to catch up.
Lovely.
So what I will say is that for both of us, Rob wasn't supposed to be on this call today, and I wasn't going to make it because I'm late because I had to join another meeting. But instinctively and intuitively, we both felt that this was where we needed to be. So from that perspective, we both ended up being on this call because instinct brought us to it, and then we were able to catch up in a way that we hadn't been able to catch up for weeks. So
wow.
It's basic level intuition brought us here today.
Isn't that interesting? And I love the fact that you hadn't caught up, but then how the chance was that you're in the same room and you got that chance to have a catch up. Rob, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. Rob.
Did you want to hear any of our thoughts about the topic as well at this point, Rash?
Yeah, anything you're wanting to share.
Only because my habit is to scribble down once the meeting's underway, and I kind of just go with what my heart's saying at that point. So I'll share that as well. But just to further from what Marvell was saying, we found ourselves here because we followed our intuition, and I'll catch up with whatever I was meant to be doing with the Department for Education later. You know, that can wait. I've relegated that to second place. The look on my face, Rash, was only because you were taking it in order going round. We spoke when we were invited to speak, and Movell and I are nothing if not obedient.
Tell him. That's what I thought.
When he said, why are you looking like that? Because we hadn't spoken, because we hadn't been asked to contribute yet. That's the only reason.
Exactly.
It's just really interesting already, the power of this intuition thing. And then when, you haven't had a chance to speak and then something's telling you to be on the call. And it's interesting, isn't it, when we do and when we just don't listen to it. Yeah, it's very, very powerful. Exactly. But yeah, it's something that we don't give much. People don't teach you about, people don't teach you around it, not that you can teach you it. You know what I mean? People don't speak about it.
I actually think there's something else there at play that's quite topical, Rash, about what and where you're told to play with your intuition and what cultures can do to that, and what majority cultures can sometimes do and have as an impact on the minority cultures. And that's not just ethnicity. I'm talking about underrepresentation in the workplace as well. So when you are from an othered group, the impact and the pressure that is brought to bear on your own intuition, because and that's where I think it leaves the door open to imposter syndrome, because if you're not behaving in the majority cultural way, it makes you feel as though actually, oh, I shouldn't be doing that because actually. So I remember when I was once told not to sign off my emails as stay strong, because if I continue to do that, I won't get into the senior civil service. And now I don't swear, but I felt like saying, oh, but I still remain true to self. What I'd written down is this. I'd written down, in no particular order, intuition is an instinct. It's your heart's whisper. It's your heart's whisper. It's the gut of your heart. It's true. It's always true. Your intuition is always true, but it's not always right. It's not always right. It's often held as your own personal and private secret. Sometimes it doesn't see the light of day. And you'll like this one, Rash, it's somewhere between chaos and mayhem right now. My intuition is somewhere between chaos and mayhem. Thank you. Intuition is the fruit of our curiosity. It's the fruit of our curiosity. I think it's exclusively my own. It's magic. It's human magic. And it's our true purposes. It's our true purpose, sat-nav. It's a sat-nav for our true purpose. And by the way, I agree with Dr. Martin. It's the air that we breathe. It's oxygen.
Well, it's interesting, just picking up on that, for me, there's some things that really jump out for me. For me, I was thinking about intuition, and I think, Aleksandra, you were saying intuition, instinct, whatever. For me, these things and the other I word, inspiration, they're all linked. Because for me as a singer-performer, if I put on that hat, it's always there. You know, for me, it's almost like in the air. So on the one hand, it's an inner feeling, but on the other hand, it's both. It's inner and it's external. For me, it's both. It's like it is in the air. And so for me, lots of the quotes will come through to me, lots of the music, or lots of just so much of the creative stuff. And it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes that ever came to me, which is this one, and I love it. And this quote is, if you listen quietly enough to life, it will whisper its secrets to you. And for me, that's so much what it's about. You know, if you listen quietly enough to life, it will whisper its secrets to you. And let's turn to Dr. Martin and Mia. Let's turn to you both next. What happened in your conversation? And where's Mia? Mia's vanished for a moment. Well, she's vanished off the call for a moment, so we're going to come back to you both. because hopefully she'll come back. So Dr. Martin, bear with us. Danny and Iris.
Yeah, we were talking about synchrodestiny, how sometimes the chain of events brings you in contact with people and then something else happens, and somehow things like even being in this meeting and meeting the kind of people that we have in this group happen.
That's true. Anything you want to add to that, Danny? That really resonates with me, that chain of events, that one thing, then at least, and then that, and it's almost this chain, this path, of these bird seeds in your life, of these crumbs. I love that. Danny, anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think that's lovely. That's kind of where we're at. Iris has got exciting things going on as well, and that's her intuition speaking to her. So I look forward to seeing where that takes her. But yeah, it was nice to have a conversation with different people and a different perspective. So I appreciate doing it to two people.
You know, it reminds me of when you said that, it reminds me of like one of the most incredible things that ever happened in my life, you know, really briefly, was that I remember when I was pursuing a career as a singer, I was trying to make it, and I was pursuing jazz at this particular time. And I went to this masterclass. And it's really weird that I found myself at this masterclass, because then I had a huge ego and I'd only want to show up somewhere if I could sing. But there wasn't any singing spaces available. And the person who was behind it told me that. They said, Rasheed, come along to this thing, this masterclass. So I have no idea why I showed up, because normally I'd just say no, right? And I showed up there, and there's this guy who's singing, very talented singer. And he was singing. I spoke to him afterward. He handed me a CD. His CD was called Serendipity. We started to speak. This person became my best friend. We both know that Danny's name's Marcus. And this is somebody who was so instrumental in helping me with my singing career, but also in terms of the work that I do now. I wouldn't be doing the work that I do now had it not been for that. And there was a whole chain of events, starting off with this CD called Serendipity. So for me, it's really interesting, that fascinating chain of events. Let's go to, she's back in the room, so we will go to Dr. Martin and Mia Morris.
Okay.
Kick us off.
We were talking about the way in which instinct is fostered by the love that comes through people in your life that are enormously valuable, if not invaluable. I had tapped on this point, and the way in which at work, very often your instinct is it's repudiated, because we are socialized to actually think and behave in a rational, quantifiable way. You can't quantify instinct. I remember reading this many years ago and thinking, this sounds like such a Eurocentric way of reading and behaving and conforming, because in the Caribbean, instinct plays a very vital part in your being and in your life. So to me, the love that comes through the people that you know fosters and supports instinct. And I was speaking with Mia about that. Mia, you might like to say more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about the role that intuition has played in our life and how we play to it. We listen to it strongly. And I've got a theory: as you get older, you listen to it even more, actually, more intently. Mm-hmm. I've got a quote: "There are always flowers for those who want to see them."
Mm-hmm. All is, I love that. All is flowers for those who care.
There are always flowers for those who want to see them. Yeah. Yeah.
Frank and Leigh, our last group. What emerged in your conversation? I can see the smile there, Leigh.
I'm passing the microphone to Leigh. She did.
I'm still sitting with your sharing. It was very powerful because I don't know how much I may share, Frank.
No, spill the beans.
Spill the beans. We were having a kind of a candid conversation about the Black Lives Matter, and as Frank was speaking, he was saying that he wasn't sure if there was going to be any real and lasting change this time. that there's a momentum. But for instance, with something, I hope you don't mind me sharing, Frank. If there's a momentum with, there's such a momentum with Brexit, and if people really want to hone their energy into something and focus that, then things happen, then things shift. But with something like this, it might just peter out. And as Frank was speaking, I was really, I kind of always get chills. I don't always get chills, but I get chills if something feels right. And I hope in this case that your intuition isn't right, Frank. But I do understand that it's so painful to see something happening and wishing for this immense change and seeing the momentum, but also, there's such a feeling of, in South Africa, we have a massive feeling of apathy towards anything that is changed. So I totally relate to that. People get, they give up even before things get started because people are just so tired of fighting so hard, and it's very, very painful. It's very, very painful to witness. So I feel that so deeply, but I mean, every person has a responsibility to feed into that change. And if people can, honor each other in that way, then change can really happen. If they have integrity to do that, if they have integrity to stick to that and to care about other human beings, to genuinely care about other human beings. But it's so much, Justin, my partner, always says, you've got to check your expectation. You've always got to check your expectation. So bringing that down. But one hopes, one wishes, one prays. You never know. You never know. We can't give up. I think that's the feeling for me. We can't give up, even if it feels hopeless. We can't give up.
There's an interesting link there, isn't there? I was just thinking between this thing about intuition and change that we picked up on. I was just thinking about, in a way, the difference between intelligence and in the everyday sense, knowledge. Knowledge is pretty much based on what you currently have or what things are currently telling you. And sometimes the intuition and instinct can sometimes bring in things beyond. How often is it in our own lives that the instinct has just given us the courage to try something new, or let me just go in this direction, let me just try this, and so on. Let me just try that, isn't it? It's the thing that can often help us find courage. Does anyone want to pick up on that thing about that link there between intuition and courage? Because I do think that for me, in a lot of my life, it's been about having the courage to walk a different way, walk a different path, to trust what my instinct is telling me. For me, with the things that I've written and with my whole career, the stuff about the inner peace, the inner fulfillment, it was a case of the courage of trusting that. And for me, it's so important to just trust that and not, sometimes all of, there's a friend of mine who's had a song and there's a line where he said the rush will go the same way, everyone would go all the same way, but sometimes there's something about trusting another way. I'll go something like this,
Have you got thunder and lightning down your side?
Yeah, I think it's just about to start. Yeah, if it's change, if it's innovation that you're looking for, sometimes you need to look to the exceptions, not the norms. Sometimes you've got to trust, again, that sat-nav, this inner sat-nav, and you talk about the thing that's uniquely your own. And you've led us, I wasn't going to cover it today, but I think this led us to this self-empowerment thing. I mean, Iris, I'll bring you back in here at this moment, because it was interesting that the stories that you've told about a very powerful, it's almost like a visionary, I mean, Dr. Martin's got this visionary hat on, this visionary sense, it's like dreams, it's almost like a prophetic, right, side of intuition. Can I ask you, and you don't have to answer it, what's your intuition telling you now about the next step? Because it strikes me again that the intuition with you is very powerful. So what's your intuition telling you about now? Because that type of intuition is very profound. We don't always have it with that degree of depth, color, or detail.
Yeah, I was just sharing that in our little breakout session. I quit my job a few weeks ago. And in a way, when you have the corona crisis and potentially economic downturn, it's quite counterintuitive. But it was nearly like the minute I did that, I just suddenly had such a, and that I've been dilly-dallying around in terms of what I'm going to do, and is it this, is it that, and so on. And it just started to be like a jigsaw that starts to fit together. and I'm actually quite excited about it. But I think it's also, you're here now and you want to be there, but you have no idea how you get there, but you just know somehow life will support you and make it happen when you're in the flow of life.
That's so powerful, Iris, because it makes me think of a line that I've never forgotten. I remember hearing this song first of all. I don't want to give away my age, although it's been plastered in the media, social media. But it's like...
It was his birthday. It was his birthday.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. So it was... Thank you very much. And there was this quote, like as a kid, in this song by Howard Jones called "Things Can Only Get Better," and this line goes, and it makes me think of things that you were just saying a while ago, Leigh, and then what Amir's picked up on. And do you feel scared? I do, but I won't stop and falter. And if we threw it all away, things could only get better. So for me, there's something about that sometimes, that when everything falls away, have you ever had this experience where everything seems to fall away? There's nowhere to hold on to. Everything's fallen away, that hope that you'd had. My instinct's telling me to bring in Mavelle at this point, that sometimes where all the things we're desperate to hang on to, they fall away, and then suddenly we find strength. Suddenly there's magic in that space. Mavelle, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for me, because I believe that when we're born almost with a pre-programmed path. And if we continue to follow our intuition, then we follow that path and we get with that all kinds of riches and joys that life brings us. Unfortunately, society and the way cultural norms are, we get that stamped out of us, and you see it in children. So for instance, if a boy is even slightly effeminate or he cries, he gets told, don't do that. And so the message then is a child gets told is that my intuition is incorrect. What my spirit tells me to do is incorrect. I have to do what society tells me to do, which is why so many of us are walking around as adults in pain and in trauma, because we have not followed our intuition and our life path, because very early we've been taught to ignore that. As people of the Caribbean, we are often told, I grew up not understanding what it meant until I think I was about 6 or 7. My mum would say, my spirit doesn't take to that person. And I never understood what that meant. And we grew up hearing that in the Caribbean all the time. Follow your mind is what we get told as we're growing up as kids. And so I understood what that meant as I got older. And I'm finding that the less I follow my mind and my instinct, the more I end up with either a problem, a situation I don't like, or something that I could have had that would have been great not coming to me. So I think we have to start from the very beginning. We have to go back to our children, and when we watch them at play and we watch them doing things, instead of stamping that out of them and telling them not to do it, we have to actually allow them to be who they are, because I believe they are following the life's path that was intended for them. And our intuition is our guidance system back to that life path that was intended for us. So for me, how that manifests and is manifesting for me as an adult is, when I started my company, my intuition said, do it now. It's time to do it now. And when I did that, I started to get clients that I probably wouldn't have got had I started later. My intuition told me at some point last year to give myself 6 months and hand my resignation in. And then later on it said, don't do it just yet. Had I done that when I said I was going to do it, I would have been out of work right now when the pandemic hit. So for me, it's about listening and understanding when my mind tells me to do something, or my intuition speaks, to just stop and listen. And I'm helped to stop and listen through things like meditation. When I get still and you get silent, then your inner voice speaks and you're able to center, and you're able to then listen to what is my instinct telling me to do, and then follow that.
I like that. My instinct's telling me to open another breakout room really briefly. And what I'd like to, because so often we don't follow this, isn't it? You're so right, that often the mind, and we've been indoctrinated, it could be by parents, by society, by here, by there, by this culture, this group, that group, not to trust your instincts. I really would love for you. Yeah, please, Dr. Martin.
One of the things I would like to say to all of us, all of you in front of me, is that as a Black Brit, I have always followed my Caribbean spirit. And that is why I'm still alive. And that is why I'm still a very strong, independent man, because I absolutely cannot bow down to the kind of political construction of one's identity that is promoted in the United Kingdom that tells me what I should be, because that can never be me. Never, never, never. So as a Black Brit, I have always followed my Caribbean spirit, and it's led very good people to me. And it's also always kept me buoyant rather than depressed, because to do it the other way around, I think I'd have been suffering some kind of mental depression.
I think I'm so glad you said that.
I was learning to say that. I just had to say that before.
I'm glad you said that, because I think on that, you know, there's that point about, I think that this is such a powerful point, and it links to so many of the points before that. If I don't listen to my instinct, something either dies in me, or something, or harm could happen to me, or there's something that I miss. If I don't trust my instinct, isn't it? There's something, I mean, picking up from your, that powerful story that you started us off with, Iris, you know, whatever may or may not have happened, the fact that your instinct was saying no, and you'd had such a sense of this, meant that for your own feeling of safety, you trusted your instinct. And it's so interesting, isn't it? You're saying, you know, there's this physical feeling around this. And again, this theme that a number of people said, when your spirit doesn't take to something, this is so powerful, this thing about the instinct. So I'm torn between whether to open up we'll do both. Very briefly, you're going to have just 1 minute in this room, okay? Just 1 minute. I want you to just share, just in a sentence, what is your instinct telling you to do? Please just make it one sentence, because it's only going to be a minute and there's going to be 3 of you in the room. What's your instinct telling you to do?
About what?
But it might be about anything. It might be, my instinct is just telling me to ring my best friend. My instinct is telling me to, you know, it might be anything. It might be something only in that moment that emerges. It's going to be just a minute. So it's going to be really quick fire. And over to you, my friends. Brilliant. So I've sent them back into their rooms, and they've just had a minute. And so it's just going to be really, really, really super quick fast. So you have 20 seconds each. They've got 20 seconds each to share. What's their instinct telling them? I really want to kind of, in a way, just gently challenge them. What's their instinct telling them? What's their instinct telling them now? What is it that they should be doing? What's it they should be doing right now? We've got some interesting groups. Let's see how the groups are shaping up. Oh, we've got some wonderful groups. Really wonderful groups. I mean, they're all wonderful people, but it's interesting when we just see what happens. But the combination between instinct and chance. Yeah, where's the line between instinct and chance? What is chance? Let's see. But what's this conversation evoked in you? You know, what's it stirred up in you? How could you trust your instincts more? Is it a case that you're on that journey where you need to trust your instinct or try and listen to your instincts again? You might be watching this, and halfway through you might have this instinct to call family member, friend, brother, sister, parent, child, old colleague, look somebody up, to read a book again, to play a particular song. What's your instinct telling you? You know, what is that instinct telling you? It's going to be so interesting. I'm just giving them a little bit more time. Yeah. So I'm going to stop and close the rooms. I'm going to close the rooms. I'm going to bring them back. And let's see what they say. Let's see who was in each room. Aleksandra, Iris, Leigh, Danny, Mia, Mavel, Dr. M, Frank, and Rob. Let's see where they are. I'm really enjoying this one. I'm just enjoying it. I'm really enjoying this one. Has a different energy, doesn't it? It has a different energy to the other sessions we've done so far. I'm really Yeah, really, really interested to see where they want to take this. Yeah, and you can see they're staying to their breakout groups until the last minute. Yeah, what struck you? For me, it's just yeah, for me, it's like so much. Welcome back, Leigh. Welcome back. Welcome back, Iris. Loving today's conversation. It's got a different energy, isn't it? Isn't it interesting when we start talking about this, it has a different energy. Welcome back, everybody.
Rasheed, I wanted to just say something before I forget.
Yeah,
Your
please.
song, your spiritual song that you did, you have to premiere that.
Okay.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful. And I think today's conversation, you know, it kind of lends it, maybe not in this at this moment, but this kind of will lend itself to that, because it's been playing in our head all the time, and in Debbie's head as well, and in Justin's head. So you've got us mesmerized. Well,
that's really, really kind. You know, just very briefly, what's about, I was working on, just before lockdown, an album, which I won't say the title of it, but it's about the world that we live in. And post-lockdown, well, during lockdown, I suddenly realized each song title is so apt for where we're at right now. And there was a particular song in there called Artificial Intelligence, and there's somebody who was on one of these calls, and there was a line in it called Deep Compassion. Anyway, we did a remix of it and we sent it to them, and it's now in lots of people's minds. So I'll take that on board. I will take that on board. We will do something with that. Let's hear from everyone. Anyone want I'm just going to get you. I'm just going to hold the mic over to whoever wants to share it. All that jumps out to me is that when we start talking from this place, it has a completely different energy. And I wonder if we sometimes, somebody said it earlier on, we stop the flow of energy by not speaking from that space. I remember a number of years into coaching, I would begin to trust when my instinct would just tell me to ask somebody a particular question. Or I'll sometimes say, you know, my instinct is just telling me that blah, 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 and I've learned to trust it. And now with lots of things I'm trying to do, like writing, you know, the other day I had some time, I'd had a clear day, which was rare, and I went to work on a new book idea that I had, and I realized I was going to start working, I realized I can't do it. I can't work from that space. I have to wait for it to come to me. That's not how I work. I can't work from that space. For me, it's so many things that I do, it's pure instinct or pure intuition. Handing over the mic, who wants to take the mic over to yourselves? Danny.
I shared that just a personal thing of wanting to go and not get straight back into work, but to do something else. And I think after the call, I was just thinking it's about acting on our intuition. So it's one thing realizing what your intuition is saying, but actually to act on it is a different thing. So I just want to make sure that I just commit to that. Because of this call today, I'm going to commit to doing that and not the other thing I was going to do.
You know, that's powerful, because I think that leads us into exactly what this will be, that beginning of that wrap up, where each person is going to share what that instinct's telling to them. And if we're brave enough to air it, this is what I'm going to do, because it is so powerful. And Danny, you're going to get to pick who goes next. Pick who's going next.
Go on, Frank Munro. I'd like to hear you talk, please.
You must be a glutton for punishment. I said what my intuition is telling me is to continue driving forward with my one band initiative of collectively pulling all of the MOJ BAME staff networks under one coalition, one umbrella.
Powerful. Yeah, I'm wanting to ask so many follow-up questions to that. And I'll just say, trust your instinct. All I'm going to say is then just trust your instinct on how to do that. You know, just go with it. Who do you want to pass the baton to, Frank?
I want to pass it on to OBE Rob.
Yeah, because we've got two on the call. Oh, you need to unmute, Mike. Yeah.
Apologies, everyone. Thanks, Frank. I'm going to make a promise and share with all my friends here to get some rest next week. I've been hard at it. Thanks, Mabel. I've been hard at it since lockdown, as many of us have. And my intuition, whilst it currently resides somewhere between chaos and mayhem, I'm going to go in there, find it, and go with it, because it's telling me to take my foot off the pedal and just recharge a wee bit and watch a couple of film, listen to a couple album, and just Lay back.
I recommend the Spike Lee film.
I've seen it. I watched it. What, The Five Bloods?
Yeah.
I saw it the night before last. We got to compare notes here. I think it's wonderfully compelling, but it's flawed.
Okay.
Rob, you were supposed to be sharing money with this group, not, your intentions of getting sleep.
But you know what? It's that thing about that rest thing is so important. And Rob, I would just say that because for those people who don't know you, I mean, I just don't know how you do it, because like the other week, and I'm up really early, and I'm up at 5, but recently I've been up just before 5, okay? But there was a day last week, and Rob was sending his first message to a group at like 5 o'clock. I'm like, how'd you do it? So I think that rest thing is so important. On that note, just before, Rob, who are you going to pick to go next?
I'm going to pick the wonderful Leigh.
Aha, Leigh. Actually, the good thing is I was going to do a segue by Leigh talking about the retreat, which we're going to run also on the 29th of June, Saturday the 29th, we all. Would you say a word about that? And would you say what you're going to say about instinct? Because it's quite important, isn't it? And it ties in with this, and what Rob was just saying. So over to you, Leigh.
Okay, so our inner retreat is really, Rasheed came up with the title, which is we, all. And I think that's very much coming from an inner space, moving a little bit outward to embrace everybody. And my wonderful partner, Justin, is going to lead a very special loving kindness, or we call it a metta meditation, which is a very, very powerful shift, I think, from giving enough space to look inwards, but then also being able to extend that loving kindness and compassion outwards. And really with that feeling that by giving and sharing more, you're never losing, you're only ever gaining. More love, more compassion. It's always just multiplying and growing. So that's a little bit about our inner retreats, which I'm very, very grateful to Rasheed for. All of the proceeds go to us starting a retreat center in South Africa, which is very, very needed. I think now more than ever, my intuition is saying that one needs to persevere with that, because it's been a hard slog. Getting anything done in South Africa is challenging. But I hope we have the capacity and the tenacity and the endurance to continue.
And can I just add with that, just Leigh, with that we all, that inner space, that inner time to connect to oneself, the we, the group, the collective, which as we know that's important, isn't it? We only need to look at things like Black Lives Matter, or when any time a group, a family, or a people need to, what's the we, the family, that bonding, and then the all, crucially, how is that we can all come together? And for me, it's about how can everybody, including everyone who's on this call, those people who are the enablers, those people who some might call the light workers and so on, how is it that we're all able to play our part? So it's about moving, shifting, that all are on it, the individual is on it, the group, the collective is on it, but where we often stop as a species is the all. And the all has to happen. The all has to happen. The all is key. Like one of my favorite moments over the last few weeks, when the choreography, we know, was it last week? When everyone dragged that ridiculous statue, goodness knows what that statue was still up in Bristol, and everybody, black, white, you name it, dragged it down. And the police were also part of it by not doing anything, which I applaud. That we all, how is it we can all move to that state? So each individual is honoured, each collective is honoured, but we're all collectively honoured. Any last thing, what's your intuition telling you, and who you're going to pass the mic to, Leigh?
I'm going to pass it to Dr. Martin.
Dr. Martin.
Visionary.
Okay. My instinct was to continue writing my novel. I'm in the closing stages of the editing process, and I know that this is my own personal contribution to what's going on out there. Sometimes, you give to people, or you're trying to help, but they don't take your help. And we see resistance to learning, and we see resistance to advice. But there is no resistance within myself to giving thoughts and ideas that I believe moves the debate on, or actually provides some vision about what we're doing in this moment in time to empower ourselves and to validate the dignity of our own lives. And that's what my novel is about. Not simply survival, but about the affirmation of one's existence, not just in Britain, but of course in America. But to me, Black people's lives matter because we all live together. And if we don't do that successfully, there is no reward. And, you know, that may sound like hubris, but it's very simple. If you can't connect with each other, then you're not going anywhere. You're not doing you're not achieving anything. And so, to me, writing a novel, knowing that it's out there, people can get it, read it, and they can be inspired if they want to or not. That to me is a great contribution, and it's the greatest contribution, more than just teaching people in a class, that I do, because it's my truth.
Wonderful,
and that's
wonderful.
what's valuable to me.
Wonderful, wonderful. I hear you loud and clear. Who would you love to pass the mic to now?
Aleksandra.
Aleksandra, what's your intuition?
Thank you, Dr. Martin. That's very inspiring. Yeah, I think we all have our own part, as Movell said. If we listen to it, we all know really what exactly we have to do. And it might change during our course of our life, of course. But at the moment, my intuition tells me that I just continue collaboration with Leigh, that I never met in person, but I just trust her with my life. And after this call, we are going to create more places and spaces for people to just get in their own natural rhythm of truth. So to remove those blockers, like Darren and we talked, he has some blockers for his well-being. So I think it's so important to create this like inner retreat, like you're doing, Rasheed, with Leigh and Justin, just to create, I want to create these spaces because I know they helped me. Spaces where I can just, my mental and physical health will be better. And then I can also take care for others and improve lives of others and explain and educate others.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's wonderful to hear. Now, I think that you've got a choice of people you can pass the mic to. I think we've not heard from Iris, Movell, Rob, and Mia. Is that right?
So
yeah.
Let's start with Iris.
Iris.
Yeah, so I just think for me at the moment it's listening to life's quiet whisper, to let go and let be.
Love it.
And I just feel I'm at a turning point and a big changing point, and I have no idea, but it just feels absolutely perfect and okay.
Love that. I love that. You know, sometimes when people speaking, I just need to share this very briefly. I feel it. You know, sometimes when people say I feel you, you know, if it's something true, I feel it, and I'm like, yeah, and it's clear, and other things just fall away, and it's just there, and I know, and that's it, and that's all I need to know. Do you know? Will you just give me like 1 minute? Will you? What's the word? Humour me, because you know I love music. You know, as a kid, I really didn't like, first of all, that song. Does anyone know that song? Linda Ronstadt and Erin Neville. I don't know much, but I know I love you. Didn't like it at all. And then about 10 years later, 15 years later, the lyric just came to my head. The lyric, I don't know much, but I know I love you. And that might be all I need to know. It just hit me. I'm like, wow, that's so profound. So it knocked me for six. Something that I had never understood before became so profound. You know, that feeling of just knowing something and trusting it. Love it. Who is going next, Iris?
Mia.
Mia.
It's the thing that Rasheed says, do you have room in your heart? So do you have room in your heart for your intuition, basically? Going up against an open door all the time, seeking openness.
Wonderful. Who are you going to pass the mic to? I think you've got Movell and Rob to choose. Yeah, Rob.
Or should I say Rob Neal OBE?
I thought I'd handed to Leigh, so I thought I'd spoken.
Oh, had you? In which case, do you want to pass it on to Movell? You can introduce Movell, who you needed to catch up with anyway. So do you want to introduce Movell?
Well, she's my sister from another mother. She is the light in my life often, and she's a shoulder I cry on. And thank you for all of that, Mavel. You are my sister. Over to you.
Well, that feeling is very mutual. It's going to be a mutual loving, and no one's going to get really annoyed with us. But yes, I feel exactly the same way about Rob. It's a definite source of support for me, and for everyone else. I know I can, if I need something, or someone I know needs something, I can send them to Rob, and he's never going to turn them down. So I love that about him. Very giving, very wonderful and generous spirit. And so, and in terms of my intuition is telling me a couple of things. One is that I have reached the end of the road in the job that I'm in, and I've felt that way for a while, but I've kind of been talking a good game about moving on, but haven't actually done that. And so my instinct is now more than ever, with everything that's happening in the world, kind of letting me know that it's time for me to move on from that journey. And then the other part of my instinct is telling me that I need to be more creative. I used to be very, very creative as a kid. I used to do fashion design and arts and stuff, and I've not been in touch with that. So my instinct is telling me to reconnect with my creativity.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Beautiful. My instinct is telling me that next week, you know, today it was supposed to be instinct and self-empowerment, but I wonder if next week should be self-empowerment or self and empowerment, because I'm tempted to drop the word self and just have it empowerment. What do you feel? Do you want us just have that big, empowerment is a very powerful word. Aleksandra, should we just go with empowerment?
Yes.
And we can interpret that however, because that's quite strong. It can be radical, it can be powerful. There's something powerful about that word, isn't it? Empowerment. I just want to thank you all so much for being here, sharing your heart, sharing your wisdom, sharing with each other and connecting. What a wonder. Oh, look at that. Oh, the cat. We've got cats. Last week we had dogs, and now they've got cats. Just want to wish you all the best, everybody, and lovely to see you. And do join us on retreat if you can, or pass on the word if you're able to. It'll be lovely to see you. And see you same time, same place next week for Compassion Check-in.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Stay strong, good people.
Yes,
Rob.
Bye, everyone.
Yes.
Solicitors Regulation Authority. I need a contact. Do we have